I was designing those structures to take you out of your world and bring you into mine, because we were told that by our investors that if we could hold your attention for 2 minutes or longer, then we had a valuable company. And honestly, the app that I worked with, we weren't that good at it, but I started to notice that the entire industry of social media is based on that principle. All Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, Twitter, all of them, YouTube, competing with the same tactics and tricks of how do I grab and hold as much of your time as possible. And I'm gonna share my screen here. And we're off. So first off, technology is amazing. If you were to tell me that I could have these type of face-to-face conversations across oceans, that I'm the guy who's like walking around on Google Maps trying to figure out where the blue line is pointing, or else I have no idea where I'm going. I have a flashlight, a stopwatch, a calculator, and a camera all in my pocket at the exact same time. And every song that's ever been created in this magical device, our ancestors would freak out if they saw this tool. Absolutely such a gift. And there also is a cost. And so I want to talk a little bit about those notifications. And so we're very used to something like this, right? Aaron, Danielle, whoever this person is, has tagged you in a photo. But let's zoom out for a second. And I want us to think about what's really happening here. What are we saying? We're saying, hey, somebody has tagged a picture of you and shared it with everybody you know and a whole bunch of people you don't know. Do you want to see that photo? You don't have to. You don't have to look right now. Do you want to see that photo? And of course we do. Right? It is so engaging. It is so intense, that pull of how much we care about how others think of us, that it's very difficult to resist something like this on a human level, especially as a teenager, which is a time in our life where we care even more what others think. So great. And so if we zoom out again, let's say I'm going to turn all those notifications off. I'm not going to get looped in the way that they want me to get looped in. I'm going to turn it all off. Then what happens? We have these 24-hour environments like Snapchat and Instagram stories, where if you don't check within 24 hours, you literally can't see what it is. So it's the exact same process in our brain, except now it's, if we don't go in within 24 hours, we literally can't see what people said. We just know that something was said about us. All of this to say, it's very hard to resist some of this pull. And so one of the reasons that this works is something in America that makes more money than baseball, movies, and theme parks combined, and that's slot machines. And how is that possible? With a slot machine, which is a gambling tool, which you would play with just like a penny at a time or a coin at a time, how does it make so much money? And the answer is something called variable rewards, where I pull a lever or I push a button, and sometimes I win and get a big flashy reward or win some money, and sometimes I don't. And they find in animal studies here that if you can kind of predict when you're going to win and when you're not going to win, you have a healthy-ish relationship with something. But if you don't know, the animals will just keep pushing the button and pushing the button and pushing the button indefinitely. And so much of our phones, wow, this is going to be problematic. This is going to keep happening here. So I can click, are designed like slot machines. We're playing the slot machine every time we hit one of those red icons of, ooh, how many likes am I going to get? Ooh, did that one person I really wanted to like my photo, did they like my photo? And sometimes they did, and sometimes they didn't. And we're playing these emotional slot machines of, what am I going to get? What am I going to get? What am I going to get? And it's not just the red icons. Every time we scroll, we're playing the slot machine of, what am I going to get? Sometimes it makes me laugh. Sometimes I learn something. Sometimes it's interesting. Sometimes maybe it turns me on a little bit. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. And we have those emotional reactions, emotional slot machines that are happening inside of these feeds. And so these red icons, I want you to look at the screen. I want you to notice in your body how this makes you feel. Some of you are probably like, get this thing away from me. There's so much red there. There's so much anxiety. Just pay attention to that. Pay attention to how it feels in your body. And pay attention to how this feels in your body. One small change on the design, and maybe a little bit less stressful on how the reaction is. And this is just to point out that there's so much thought that these screens want your attention. They demand your attention. They're trying to get your attention from you. And so we're probably familiar with this, right? This is something that I was working on when I was building the app we were building. If you autoplay videos inside the experience, we hold about 10% more attention. We're used to this at the end of Netflix, at the end of YouTube, right? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You have to actively stop this process before it kind of gets you. And one thing I want to point out is that as soon as one organization figures this out, as soon as Netflix says, ooh, look, this works, then everybody else, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, realizes auto-playing videos is better for grabbing attention. So we have to do that too, because your time is our money. So if someone else is doing better at stealing your time, I have to use those same tricks. And so it becomes this race to the bottom of how do we grab and hold as much attention as possible. Snapchat, if you do have your camera on, we'll do that later actually. Snapchat streaks are another very manipulative tool to get us to come back and use something more and more, right? At this point in the presentation, probably realize that this is not actually being built to make people happy or feel good. This is a tool that gets people to come back in. And so I actually want to share a little video here for you. I think some of you might relate to this.
Please, I don't want your half hands. Give me whole hands if you have Snapchat. If you use Snapchat, give me your whole hands, please. Keep your hands high if you have some kind of streak going, any streaks going. Keep your hands high if you like streaks. Isn't that interesting? Isn't it wild that so many of us are doing something that we don't actually like doing? And by this point in the presentation, you can probably guess that the people at Snapchat are not waking up in the morning and saying, how can I create the most meaningful friendships and relationships between teenagers today? Streaks are a really powerful tool at getting us to come back and use the app every day. But something strange starts to happen, right? It starts to feel like, ooh, if I don't have streaks going with this person, are we really friends? Or like, ooh, if I don't have streaks with enough people or the right people, am I popular? Am I socially doing okay in school? It starts to feel like it has this very real impact on our lives, even though it was created by people who look like me in California and has nothing to do with our actual friendships. But it starts to feel very, very real. I have a friend who works at a psychiatric hospital, and she talks about how when teenagers are checking in, they are terrified to give their phones away because they cannot end their streaks. It would be the end of the world for them to end their streaks. And WhatsApp is just as easy to send messages back and forth. We don't need to be entering into these environments, but it starts to feel like a very real measure of our friendships, and probably shouldn't. And actually, quickly, give me a show of hands. Have you ever taken a picture of a wall or something ridiculous just to keep a streak going? Please, give me honesty. Give me honesty. What are we doing? What are we doing here? What are we doing?
And so another piece with Snapchat here is, do those snaps really disappear? And the short answer is no. If a government really wants to get access to your photos within 30 days, they're held on a server. Also, they do live for 30 days on a server in Los Angeles. People who really understand tech security are like, unless something is like you're on a mountain with no internet anywhere, things are not really secure. And so if somebody is asking you to send a photo that you don't want to send, if you feel free to say, you know what, I'd rather not have a government agent looking at that photo. Thank you very much. I'm not going to send it. Ideal to not send those pictures if we are afraid of them getting out. Also, if someone does send you a private picture, don't be that person who sends it around. Just don't be that person. Gaming is where a lot of these techniques are made. A lot of these techniques are created. This gamification of these systems. Fortnite has seemed to be the hit of the moment. This is a video of this game developer who creates Fortnite, just saying, look, as the numbers go up, it feels good. This is one tactic that motivates, encourages users to do more. These numbers don't mean anything, but they feel good. So this is one way of getting users to come back. I'm going to show another video that he uses here of, we talked about Snapchat, all these platforms using variable rewards and slot machines. This is where he's talking about how those slot machine type rewards are used in Fortnite.
Now, variable ratio is probably the most famous. Here we've got an example of it in Fortnite where it's used for the llamas. These are kind of loot drops or random loot crates. And a variable ratio is where there is a variable number of responses you have to do until you get the reward you're after. So with the llamas, you may not get what you want every single time. You have to open them a few times. And they even have a mechanic where they can upgrade when you hit them. So you go to open them and they turn silver or gold. Critical hits is a more kind of moment-to-moment thing of a variable ratio. If there's a critical hit system in your game, every hit people do, there's a chance it's a critical, and then eventually it may actually get there. If we look at these, the reason these are famous is that quite often the ratio is used in gambling, and the response they tend to get is a very constant and kind of high-level response. And that's because you don't know how many times you have to respond before you get the reward, so people tend to keep it up. It's not predictable like fixed ratio is, so it doesn't tend to lead to these big dips in behavior.
So what I want to point out here is that these check marks is how you're viewed by the gaming industry. Can I get this person to do this, to behave, to hit this button? Check, 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 check. And it works. There's really powerful, effective mechanisms. And I think this might explain why you might at some point be like, one more game, I'm gonna play one more game, just one more game, and then at 4 a.m. wake up later and you're still in the process. I was a gamer growing up. I would go on like 17-hour Halo benders. But I do recommend some caution in terms of putting actual money into this game. Not so sure that that's different than like buying shoes or things like that and ways of expressing yourself. But you have been very carefully pushed down a rabbit hole to be really motivated to spending money. Take a breath, be cautious before putting any money into these games for that reason. And this starts to beg the question of, am I using technology or is technology using me? And a question that can be helpful in asking ourselves here is, which apps or games make you feel good afterwards, which make you feel bad afterwards? Again, I would go on 17-hour Halo benders. I think if you were to ask me, do I like Halo? I'd be like, yeah, I like Halo. Halo is the only thing I want to do. If you were to ask me, how does Halo make me feel? That's a very different question. The first hour, probably exhilarated and excited. And the next 16, just desperately trying to get to the next level and just fit of rage and anger. And so taking a step back from what we do these things to how do they make us feel? How does the experience live in our body? I think is a much more powerful way of looking at these behaviors. And so similarly, we asked 200,000 people which apps or games made you feel good afterwards and which made you feel not so good afterwards. On the left here, the ones that made us feel good were overwhelmingly utilities, things I get in and out of very quickly, and some meditation apps, some navigation things, music. We seem to like listening in ways that feel good later. And overwhelmingly on the right, dating, social media, and gaming apps were the apps that we're spending the most time on and the apps that are leaving us filled with regret. And of course, it's not all. Wow, this keeps happening. Not all apps not all of us who use these apps feel badly about them, but on average, people who felt good about the use of each of these apps spent about 2.4 times less than those who were spending. We're spending about 2.4 times less than those who felt not good about them. So this is going to seem like a weird turn, but can we build artificial intelligence without losing control over it? I love this picture because we have an ant being stepped on by a construction worker or being stepped on by a giant robot. If you're thinking about intelligence, we're obviously smarter than the ant. In some ways, the robots are already smarter than us. In other ways, we're still smarter than they are. But we don't go out of our way to hurt an ant. In fact, we might take great care to not hurt them. We might pick them up and move them out of harm's way. But the moment their goals interfere with our goals, like we're doing construction and there's an anthill there, we just annihilate them without question. And already the goals of some of the most brilliantly crafted algorithms that have ever been created are not the same as our human goals. We don't wake up in the morning and say, how much time can I spend on TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram today? That's not a human thought. And so we think of this as the scary robot future of how the robots are going to come and kill us all. But I actually think that this is a far more likely outcome. Never underestimating man's infinite appetite for distraction, Aldous Huxley's dystopia of Brave New World. And, I used to show this as a joke of, oh, we'd never actually get here, right? We'd never really go towards a future that looks like that. This is a picture from Mark Zuckerberg's F8 conference where he's presenting virtual reality, which looks a whole lot like WALL-E, to be honest. But we're not doing this all the time. But we are doing this all the time. And is it so different if the phones are not directly in front of our eyeballs? This is an artist who I love who takes pictures of people right as they're looking up from smartphones, calls them smartphone zombies. Does this person look happy? Does this person look happy? And so this isn't just about phones. I'm actually most concerned about what's happening on them. And so we've watched social media creep into the real world. And we see this in some innocuous ways and some artistic ways we see these wings on walls or art exhibits that are really designed so that we'll take pictures in front of them. But then this starts creeping into the real world in an even deeper way, right? Where sometimes we're only hanging out with certain people so that like they'll be in our Instagram photos. We'll only go do the thing because we wanted to take a picture at it. It starts to seep into our minds where the digital world increases in importance over the physical world. And I think that's where things start to get really ugly and we're not actually in charge of our own lives. And obviously we want to be in charge of our own lives. The self-comparison here is very obvious. We're seeing lots of mental health issues, especially among young girls, presenting like as this constant self-comparison. Does not feel good to see these unrealistic standards on the explore pages of our apps. And so anytime you are comparing yourself to something you see, your body, your life in whatever way on social media, I want you to remember that this started as a pizza. That was a pizza. That was a pizza. That was a pizza. And of course, this is an extreme example, right? But we're all doing a version of this. As we filter our photos, think about what we're doing. I'm not saying filters are wrong, but every time we're doing it, think about the message we're telling ourselves. We're saying, like, the picture of me is not good enough for the internet, but let me just put this on it. Let me just put this, let me just change this a little bit so I can be good enough for the internet. And that constant telling of ourselves that we're not enough is creating a lot of mental health challenges in all over the world. And I live in New York. I saw on the subway, I saw a girl zoom in on her face, edit her lips, do her eyes, do her eyebrows, do this whole makeup thing, zoom back out, zoom in on her friend's face, think for a second, do I want to do my friend's face too, or do I just want to do mine? And then decide not to do her friend's makeup also and just do hers and then post it online. And so that's also an extreme example, but I think all of us, to some extent, that we're playing this weird digital image game, this weird comparative game, and it really is doing a number on our mental health. And of course, even though social media is not anything close to real, there is a real person on the other side of the screen. One thing I find amazing and ridiculous is that oftentimes telling bullies, hey, reminding them there's a real person on the other side of the screen changes it. There's a real person on the other side of the screen. This is what bravery looks like. This little girl saying this hurt. What cowardice looks like is typing nasty things to somebody from the safety of behind a screen. Be on the brave side of this, not the cowardly one. And in terms of reality, if you are finding yourself believing some pretty out there stuff and watching a lot of YouTube, those might be related. So we're not going to get into the details here. The earth is round. It's just not flat. I'm not going to go into it. But flat earth theory is a conspiracy on YouTube that got a lot of attention. And if you were to search whether the earth is round or flat on YouTube, on Google, 20% of those would promote flat earth theory. On YouTube search, 35% of those would promote flat earth theory. On YouTube recommendations, 90% would promote flat earth theory. And so those YouTube rabbit holes, and how many of our videos do we get from recommendations, right? Most of them. We go in there to watch one, we wake up 2 hours later in a daze. And so these YouTube recommendations push us towards some really crazy versions of things that we're likely to believe because they're convincing. These conspiracy theories, they're provably wrong, but they're convincing, and that's why they work. And so Kyrie Irving is a basketball player in America who fell down this rabbit hole. And the reason I pulled this up here is because when science teachers were like, can you stop this? And they showed him why he was wrong, he apologized. And when he did apologize, the people who still believed it said, the round earthers got to him. That's what happened here. The round earthers, they got to him. That's why he's changing his mind. It's not real, but the round earthers got to him. It's very hard to undo the convincing damage that these rabbit holes do to our brains. And so in the communication space, your parents, adults will tell you communication is hard. All throughout life, communication is a lifelong lesson and thing that we learn. Digital communication is even harder. If you're thinking about what is posting, as I post something on social media, Matthew was talking about how do we use that for good? What are we sharing out into the world? This is what posting is. I am posting right now. I am giving a presentation to a large group of people. I can't really see you. Some of you are hidden behind video screens, and maybe every once in a while, like I would feel a tap on the shoulder, a little like, or I'd hear someone shout out, this is great, or this is terrible, you suck, go home. Like maybe I would hear those things, but that's pretty much the digital environment that we're living in. We don't think about it that way, but that's pretty much what it is what we're sharing, things that we would want to announce in front of a crowd. I'll leave that to you. Also, you may notice that this person is not laughing out loud. texting is very challenging to like get messages across. Can we think to ourselves of like what conversations are going to be best for text, which are going to be better for FaceTime, which are going to be better for calls in non-corona world, which can we have in person, face to face? But understanding that a lot is really lost when we try to shrink things in. I know some people think periods are violent in texting communication. There's a lot of room for misunderstanding and miscommunication. I find in my life that if I don't see or talk to my friends for a long time and only am texting with them, this like resentment starts to build up. It's just like a matter of time before there's like some kind of conflict or misunderstanding because tone is lost and so much isn't there. So just recognizing that and realizing that sometimes a call or a FaceTime, just like checking in, is much more helpful to have mutual understanding. Some of you will also realize what this is here, which is the point entirely, which is that as somebody is sliding over on Snapchat, they are trying to like see what the message is without having sent that it is delivered or read on their phone. When we have communication in texting, in Snapchat, in Instagram, with these seen notifications, with read, delivered, it creates all these different levels of anxiety, right? We know what it's like to feel when we're left on read. We see they've seen it, but they haven't responded. Why haven't they responded? Honestly, like it's just helpful to have conversations and not in these environments. We've started Snapchatting as our text. This is a really toxic environment for text to happen. This environment does not care about you. It's trying to grab your attention. There are other more neutral places where you can have conversations. I recommend moving over to those. Similarly here with Instagram, like active this many minutes ago. Why haven't they responded? I see they were on here. And then you start thinking, oh wait, if I go online, they're gonna see that I'm active and they see that it was seen. All these thoughts being programmed into our heads by these social media platforms that we don't need to have there. TikTok right now, I think, is probably doing the greatest number on teen social health. Some of these comments, I think, tell it quite well. This app never fails to remind me of how single and lonely I am every day. He can have all this. I can't even have someone to hug. It does not feel good to scroll through our social media feeds of everybody's highlight lives and fake selves and compare them to what it feels like to be a person. Being a person means having negative thoughts and feelings and experiencing loneliness and sadness and all those things, and comparing it to this total lie of a world just really does a number on our mental health. I know this stuff really well. Still happens to me. Knowing it doesn't change it. It takes understanding this is going to happen to me, and I'm actively not going to dive into that rabbit hole. And so overall, what's this doing to our brain? Multitasking is one thing here that we sort of just right now, I'm sure at least 85% of you are doing something else while listening to me. Little known thing about multitasking is as humans, we cannot visually multitask. Our brain does not actually do that. It just switches back and forth rapidly between tasks. And so like researchers found that on cognitive tasks, so homework, tests, things like that, people who put their phones outside the bedroom did significantly better than those who even had their phones off and on the table. Or in their purse or things like that. Just the presence of this thing is a multitasking like element in itself, because we're constantly thinking about it and checking, is it going to be buzzing? Ooh, our brain wanders to it very quickly. If you want to do better in school, the difference between about a 78 and an 82, 83, like just study with your phone outside the bedroom. Very simple, very actionable tip there. And overall, like the biggest thing here for me is what this is doing to our mental health. This is from a friend, Colin Karchner, who would go around collecting thousands and thousands of these messages from teenagers who would talk about their experiences with social media. This one here saying, hi, I just wanted to thank you for influencing me to delete TikTok. It was a great decision. My sleep schedule is back to normal. I used to stay up till 4 in the morning watching it and sleep all day. I would never hang out with family or friends because I'd sleep all day. Deleted about 2 weeks ago and I've been able to connect more. I'm a lot more happy than I was 2 weeks ago. Delete TikTok. This is, lightweight, but happy that he did. It gets a lot darker. In my personalized feed here, there are things related to what I searched on Google, other apps. And since sometimes I needed mental help, it personalized my feed to be depressing. TikTok was pushing me into further sadness. Those nights I stayed up with those depressing TikToks are some of the worst of my life. I don't regret it one bit. Deleting the app was the best thing I did for myself. We're seeing real mental health challenge spikes all over the world. And I have a pretty strong feeling that social media is related to that. I just wanted to say that I deleted Instagram back in June and then got it back for a day in August, then deleted again. So I've been off of it for about 5 months, and I was so much happier. I didn't realize what it was doing to me until I just barely got it back again and then realized why I deleted it in the first place. So here I am deleting it again, but thank you. So my point here is I didn't realize what it was doing to me until I just got it back. And I think it can be hard. We can sometimes just be feeling all this stuff and not even understand that social media is related to it. Like Matthew said, it's the water that we're swimming in. And so taking a break from it, stepping outside of it to see what its impact is on our mental health can be extremely important and extremely powerful. We are seeing a large increase in teens with highly depressive symptoms, especially among young girls. And I think that self-comparison is very related. 2012, where that line is there, is right about when Instagram was starting to gain popularity. And this is doing a number on us. And taking a break, stepping outside of it. I'm not saying stop socializing. Don't stop socializing, especially right now in Corona. Oh my God, please do have conversations and talk to your friends. But doing it in these environments can be really challenging for our mental health, because this constant self-comparison. I could not build a better self-comparison machine than Instagram and TikTok. Couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. It deeply sinks into our subconscious and can be really hard to pull ourselves from. If you're feeling down about yourself, if you're having a hard time, please, I really invite and encourage you to try it. Try taking a break from these and see how it feels. It has never been easier to run from ourselves, right? Anytime things get a little bit awkward, a little bit hard, a little bit uncomfortable. I don't know how to do this. I'm feeling uncomfortable. I don't want to deal with the social situation. What do? We pull out our phone or we open up a new tab, and we're all of a sudden in a totally new, safe land where we don't have to deal with what's going on inside of us. That's tough. We're not going to grow up and be happy and fulfilled in the world if we don't realize and recognize how to deal with the things that are going on with us. We're just going to learn how to run away, and that leads to addictions and more challenging problems down the line. So what can we do? A couple of things that are helpful in this process. One is if you want to turn off all notifications that are not from a human being who's trying to reach you. So happy holidays from Tinder. You haven't played Candy Crush in a while. This person liked your photo. All of those notifications are algorithmically looking at you and just trying to figure out how to get you back into the app as much as possible. Go into your settings, turn that off and out of your life. If you're not going to delete things, unfollow every account that makes you feel badly about yourself. Purge your following list. It's a lot of like celebrity accounts and model accounts are just contributing to like self-comparison and feeling not good. Get out of there. If they're making you feel badly about yourself as a human being, get them off your follow list. There's a difference between making you feel badly and like bringing you value. Is someone like pushing you to grow in a helpful way, or is it just like, whoa, making you feel gross? If so, get it out of there. You can delete these environments. It's easier to do with friends, by the way, because it's kind of really annoying to do alone if you're the only one not doing it. But grabbing a couple friends and saying, hey, let's try it. Let's like still, if I love TikTok, if I love laughing from these videos, if I love making these videos, still do them. Still make the videos and try not posting them. Try sending them to each other directly and having conversations. Snapchat is a super toxic texting environment. Just use other apps. And if you're feeling really badly in self-comparison, I do recommend deleting Instagram or unfollowing people who make you feel badly about yourself. And again, asking yourself, not do I like this, but how does it make me feel? Just checking in that way. Moving socializing from these toxic environments. Not getting rid of the phone, but just with some of these social media apps, having conversations off of these apps. Do it together. It's really annoying to be the only one who's doing it in your friend group. That's a recipe for failure. Do it with friends. Physical alarm clock. I bet a lot of you have your phones as your alarm clock. If you think about that, the first thoughts in your day are not really yours. You're a human. So when you wake up, you're groggy. What's going on? What is this? You go right to your phone and immediately you see all the ways in which you're behind. You're seeing these truncated little text messages of communication, introducing all the stress and anxiety into your brain that doesn't need to be there yet. 10 minutes to yourself of just like thinking your own thoughts. Physical alarm clocks are $8 on Amazon. If you tell them this is why, I'm sure your parents will be happy to buy one for you. Blue light does a number on our sleep. Research is still inconclusive because it's so early about a lot of this stuff, but blue light, it is very definitive. Blue light really makes us sleep funny, and when we sleep funny, our whole day gets weird and ruined. If you can, for like an hour before bed, just like get the phones and devices out of the bedroom. and let your body wind down, our brains are like old school caveman things, and they think that they think our phone is the sun, pretty much. They're like, our brain is like, oh, look, the sun is right here and bright. It is not nighttime. You might be able to relate to like feeling up until like you're literally falling asleep, conked out because your body just can't take anymore. Your body does not want to sleep that way. YouTube DF is a Chrome extension. You can also go in and like turn off recommendations on certain parts of YouTube, not all of it, but gets rid of the recommendations and gets rid of the autoplay video. So maybe you can go and watch the YouTube video that you meant to watch without waking up 2 hours later in a daze. Which apps or games make me feel good afterwards, which make me feel not so good afterwards, not thinking about it as like, do I like this, but how does it make me feel? Really important in this space. If you're like, okay, if I delete social media or I don't do this all the time, what am I gonna do? Game Quitters has a hobby tool resource that just like helps you search for things. In coronavirus, this can be helpful. What are some ideas of other stuff that I can do? I'll send all this around, by the way. And finally here, winning the race to know ourselves. Yuval Harari is a really brilliant author who talks about how in this digital world, how when he was 18, he came out as gay. And he spent the next 6 months thinking, how did I not know this about myself? Like, how did I go 18 years of my life without knowing this big thing about myself? And he started to realize that like, wow, in the future, with simple eye tracking software, a company probably could have known better than he would. And what would that world have looked like if he got a notification saying like, oh, there's an 85% probability that you might be attracted to this gender over that one? And what would that world look like? And what would it look like for him if Coke knew, but Pepsi didn't? And he was seeing one company send him shirtless men ads and the other shirtless women ads. And ultimately, I share all of this because he talks about how one of the most important things to do in this digital age, how do we defend against all this persuasion, is that we win the race to know ourselves. We really like take the time to feel what we're feeling, to like practice mindfulness, to get to know where our desires coming from, where our urges coming from. Why do I want to do the things that I want to do? And being really self-reflective is one of the best practical tools that we have to defend against this persuasive technology. I've talked a lot, want to have conversation, open things up for questions, but this is also a very important one. This does not fulfill like our human needs for connection. If you can around the house, be COVID safe here, but like the human body wants 8 hugs a day, releases oxytocin in 8 seconds. A good hug is for 8 seconds. It's awkward, but laugh through it. Hold on, 8 seconds, try it. That is your homework. Your homework is hug somebody for 8 seconds. It feels great. If Taylor and Kanye can do it, you guys can do it too. And so finally here, of like those stories that you saw, we're getting like a lot of stories from people your age who are just sharing their experiences with social media. If any of this resonated with you, or you have a similar story you want to tell, sharing your story helps show others that they're not alone, and helps change the system, and that we can present these to people who are making these products and say, hey, look what you're doing to people. How can we do better here? So we have socialtruth.humanetech.com. I'll send this around too, totally as anonymous as you want to be. But you can share your story that way. And I want to open things up to questions. Thank you for your time and attention.